Hey, also, we have talked about the angles inside triangles and this exterior angle theorem for triangles, and now we want to talk about classifying triangles by their angles and also by how long their sides are. We have different classifications we can put these triangles in, different names we can give to them to see if they're similar or different. And so if we're looking to classify triangles based on its side lengths, we want to ignore the angles and we just want to look at how long the sides are. So when I look at this triangle, I have a side that's 8, a side that's 17.1, and a side that is 15.1. So all of these sides are different. When I have a triangle and all the sides are a different length, we are going to call that a scalene triangle. So when we're looking at the triangle's sides, just the sides, the angles are there, but we're going to ignore those. We just want to classify it by its sides. If all the sides are different, then we call it scalene. I'll say all diff. When we look at this next triangle, again, we're just looking at the sides right now. We want to classify it. You notice that all the sides are the same. That means all the sides are congruent. So we could actually put a little mark on each side saying they're all congruent. I'll put the little congruent symbol there. They're all congruent. This is called an equilateral triangle. Basically saying equal laterals, equal sides, all the sides are the same. When we look at this next triangle, they're not all the same. They're not all different. In fact, we have two sides that are the same, but not all three. So this side and this side are congruent. So I'm going to say two are the same, and I'll put a little congruent symbol. This is my favorite triangle name. This triangle is called isosceles. Sounds like a Greek god of triangles. Isosceles. So isosceles triangles have two sides that are congruent, and then that third side is different. So we have all three sides the same. Call that a scalene triangle. I'm sorry, all three sides are different, sorry. All three sides are different. We call that a scalene triangle. All three sides are the same. We call that an equilateral triangle. And then two sides are the same. We call that isosceles. So I want you to try this one. I want you to type into the box the category you would put this triangle into: scalene, equilateral, or isosceles. And then you can check your answer. And if you didn't get it correct, it's a good time to raise your hand and ask one of us why. So hopefully you decided this was a scalene triangle. Again, if you didn't, you decided something else, and you can't figure out why, be sure to ask, and we can point out the reason why it's scalene. We also can classify them by angles, as you might have guessed, because I said it. So in these triangles, again, we have the sides labeled. We also have the angles labeled, but now we want to just focus on the angle or the angles. And so one that you probably already know, when you see that that red box, maybe not always red, but that box in the corner, that means that is a 90-degree angle. That means it's a right angle. And that means that this is a right triangle. So we can only ever have one right angle, because all three have to add to 180. So if we have two 90-degree angles, we don't have room for a third. So if we have one right angle, one 90-degree angle, we call that a right triangle. When we look at this next triangle, we have two small angles and one big angle. And so it's important to point out that an angle that is less than 90 is called acute, and an angle that is more than 90 is called obtuse. And of course, a 90-degree angle is called a right angle. When we have an angle that's less than 90, it's acute, and an angle that's more than 90, it's obtuse. So if we have one obtuse angle, you can only have one. Otherwise, we won't be able to add our angles up to 180. When you have one obtuse angle, you might guess it, we call this an obtuse triangle. So this 125-degree angle is obtuse. It's bigger than 90. We call that an obtuse triangle. When we look at our triangles angles and we see that they're all less than 90, they are all acute. Oops. Sorry, my spelling is bad. When you see that they are all acute, you may guess, and if you did, you're right. It's an acute triangle. So we have a right triangle, one 90-degree angle. We have an obtuse triangle, one obtuse angle that's bigger than 90, so one pretty big angle. And then an acute triangle where they're all less than 90 degrees. And then I want to bring back a couple that we talked about when we talked about a couple minutes ago classifying by side length. So you can see I have a triangle here where all the sides are the same. And when all the sides are the same, we call it equilateral. But when we're focusing just on the angles, when all the sides are the same, all the angles are the same as well. So we can put those little arcs in there that show all those angles are congruent. When all the angles are the same, we can also call this thing equiangular. So an equilateral triangle is also equiangular. That means if all the sides are the same length, all the angles are going to be the same size as well. And there's only one way to do this in a triangle. There's only one type of equiangular triangle, and that's a triangle that has all three 60-degree angles. That's the only way it's going to work out. And so every equilateral triangle has three 60-degree angles. And then we can have a triangle, again, that has two sides that are the same. And if two sides are the same, that means those sides, or those angles that are across from those sides, are also going to be the same. They're going to be congruent. Two angles that are the same, or two angles that are congruent. We don't have a special name for this. Different from when we have two sides that are the same, this is also a way to determine that a triangle is isosceles. So we can figure out that a triangle is isosceles by looking at the side lengths and seeing that there are two sides that are the same, or by looking at the angle measures and seeing that two angles are the same. So an isosceles triangle is this very special triangle that we can identify based on its side lengths or its angle measures. It's also got the coolest name. So I want you to go ahead and try and classify this triangle based on just its three angles. Don't look at the sides, look at the angles. Put your answer in the box, then check your answer. If you got it wrong, please do ask for help. So hopefully you put obtuse. If you did not, that's okay, but please do, if you do not know why it was wrong, please do make sure you ask one of us to explain. Now make sure that you answer the questions here associated. Put your answers in the box. Make sure you're classifying based on the correct thing. Here we want to classify based on side lengths only. Here we want to classify by angle measures only. So focus on the angle measures.